Hello friends, it's Michael B. Thank you so much for checking out today's video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Wonderland Amusements. They've shared a lot of news in recent weeks, but most importantly today they shared a look at their playfield, so we'll take a look at that. And on top of that, I'm going to talk about a topic I talked on last night's Chill and Chat with Michael B. I want to talk about it again. The Arcade1Up Miss Pac-Man Galaga Countercade, their new Countercade models they have out using a 16:9 screen. So that's right guys, in today's video we are going to take a little time, talk about all the updates from Wonderland Amusements since we last saw them at the Pinball Expo with these new updates, and especially the reveal of the playfield today. Do we have enough to say on whether or not this is going to be a good product? And on top of that, I do want to take a little time and talk about a topic I've already talked about, which is the new Arcade1Up Countercades using these 16:9 screens, and why the problem I have with these screens could have easily been avoided. But before we get to that, I want to say thank you so much everybody for checking out the video, guys. I always appreciate the support. If this is your first time to the channel and you like what you see, go ahead, subscribe, click the bell for notification, all that YouTube jazz. So it was just about a month ago now, we were at the Chicago Pinball Expo and we got to meet the team from Wonderland Amusements who were showcasing for us their upcoming pinball machine that they're hoping to bring to the home arcade market. They're saying they're going to be able to make this affordable, sub $1,000, a real working pinball machine in the 3/4 scale that people in the home market can enjoy. Now, while we were at the event, we didn't really get a lot of information. The machine itself was really only in a demo state. I mean, they just wanted to show the playfield, show the machine itself, give people an idea of what the size will be. Really, there was no art, no information on the playfield, how the game would play. Not really a lot to talk about after we left that event. But since the Pinball Expo, we have got a few new updates from Wonderland Amusements about their team building and how the actual pinball machine is going to be done. First up, they announced the artist, which is a Carlos Mendoza. I'm not familiar with him, but they did give a sampling of some of the work he has done. You can take a look at this, decide for yourself. Obviously, a good fit for making like a dark, gothic Alice in Wonderland or Wonderland pinball machine. So yeah, that's interesting. That's the first bit of news. Then if you go up, they also brought somebody onto the team by the name of Steve Condris. He's a design consultant, and he's got a channel, The Pinball Room, and he is known in the digital pinball space for years. So, you know, there was a lot of people had some concern as we found out that Jerry from ThinkUp was the person that was actually going to be designing the playfield. And while Jerry obviously has years of experience through his work with Arcade1Up, ThinkUp, doing all this stuff, it really begs to question, though, what kind of pinball experience and will that translate well to their first pinball endeavor. Obviously, bringing somebody on like this is going to help with them make sure that the game feels good, plays well, and has good code and stuff. But the big announcement came today, I think the one a lot of people were waiting on, and that is the announcement of the playfield. First look at the playfield. I think here what they really wanted to do was show you that this isn't going to be one of those cheap tabletop pinball machines where maybe there's a couple really cheap bumpers, maybe there's some inlanes, you know, up at the top of the table. They wanted to show that there were some big boy pinball mechanisms here. We'll go into it in a little bit more detail. So keep in mind, these are in fact 3D renderings of the playfield, but as you can see here, I don't think these holes are going to be here, or maybe these holes are drawn out for where the lights are going to be. Not 100% sure, but you can take a look here. You've got your flippers down there. You've got one big plastic ramp that comes back around to a rail there, another ramp on the other side that hits to this rail. So it looks like an X pattern mechanic that's going to be happening there. Then straight up the middle, you've got your bumpers. This looks to be some some kind of bash toy with the pinball already inside it. You've got some drop targets here. We're going to have to go look at the other side here. And there's also kind of a loop-de-loop here. I don't know what that's about. But I guess, yeah, I don't know how that would play in. I'd have to see it in place. There's a better look at the bash toy and what's going up at the top of the playfield. But as you can see here, I mean, it's got some pretty good pinball staples. Keep in mind, I'm not exactly a seasoned pinball expert. I'm mostly used to playing digital pinball, and also I own a real Stern, but I wouldn't exactly call myself an expert. But, like, I don't see any scoops, anything like that. I don't know if there's going to be any special mechanisms. And I think one of the things that I take away from this is this playfield looks very, very empty right here up the middle. Like, I guess, I don't know what the layout's called. Fan layout, I've heard. Like, a very open playfield. And sometimes people can get pretty bored with those. A lot of this is going to depend on the code and how the game works and how, the game plays itself. But right now, I am seeing people say it's a very basic layout, very basic design, and that may be true. Maybe that's what they're going for. I think mainly what they were trying to show here was this wasn't going to be, one of those tabletop pinballs that didn't have ramps, didn't have rails, that didn't have these bumpers and bash toys and stuff. That was more so, it had real stuff. I don't know what the effect is. Keep in mind, it's a 3D modeled. You're going to have to see it in play. That's going to be the big thing. And they actually do mention this. I'll go back here. They talk about this. So first we get a look at the playfield itself. They also mention that Jerry is gone over to the shops in China due to a factory visit. He wants to check it out for himself because you can get all the 3D renders in the world, but it all depends on how it plays. And of course, pinball in a smaller scale, we're going to have to find out. First mechanical build, we've seen some tasty tidbits, and if they're any indication, the devs are crushing it. So we're going to follow along. Right now, I don't know if you can say whether or not we're any further ahead with whether or not this is something that's going to work, something that's going to be plausible. Again, very simple layout, but it's not, those cheap $100 table layouts where you just have a couple lanes in the back. We do have actual ramps and rails. So those are good signs, but how are they going to perform is the other question. The other thing that people bring up from seeing this 3D model is there's some concerns that the playfield is in fact going to be plastic. I think we can all agree that one of the things that's very important here, even though the machine is MDF, it would be great if they could in fact make the playfield wood. A plastic playfield, I don't know how that would work. And I do think a plastic playfield, even though it might be something that works mechanically when they do their testing, is going to turn a lot of people off, especially people that have a history with pinball and are so used to playing on that hardtop design, real wood design. So we'll see how this comes along. We'll keep our eyes on Wonderland Amusements, but the playfield is out there right now. You guys can give me your feedback in the comments. Let me know what you think of the playfield. Is this around what you thought they could do? Is this better than you thought? Let me know down below. So next up, I want to circle back and talk about something I talked about on Chill and Chat last night, and it was the new Arcade1Up Countercade. So here we see the new class of 81, and they've gone back to that very simple, almost shark fin design. It's a little bit smaller, and it's coming out at $149.99. Some people are already reporting it's down to $99.99 at Kohl's. Now, I'm going to make it bigger so P-Dubs doesn't have a shit hemorrhage. But anyways, last night when I was talking about this, I felt vindicated because I've been talking about it for weeks, and specifically this area down here, and I was like, if you look at that Miss Pac-Man thing doesn't look to be part of the bezel. I think that's part of the screen. I think they're using a 16:9 screen on this thing. And no one would, comment. No one would agree with me. No one would tell me if I'm wrong or right. I felt like I was being super gaslit here. I don't even know if I'm using that term right, but like no one would acknowledge it. But yesterday I did see My buddy Mike McWhirter actually picked this one up in the official Arcade1Up fan page, and he did bring it home, and we actually got a look at some of the gameplay. And as you can see here from this picture he posted, here's the Dig Dug game screen, but on the bottom, that Miss Pac-Man isn't part of the bezel. That's in fact part of the screen. This is in fact a 16:9 screen, with the playfield only being about this big and pushed right to the top. So instead of the playfield being in the middle, they pushed it right to the top, and then both of the black areas that will be on the top and the bottom for where you usually position your 4x3 vertical screen on a 16:9 vertical screen are used here at the bottom, and they've got this giant logo that's almost half the size of the playfield, and then a credit function. I don't know whose idea this was, but I hate it. I think it looks terrible. I don't know what's going on. Obviously, there's a reason Arcade1Up did this. They're trying to save money. A 16:9 screen is so much infinitesimally cheaper than a 4x3 screen, so this is one of their ways they're trying to save money. I've heard for the 19-inch level, you could save as much as $40 to $70 by shifting to a 16:9 from a 4x3. In this one, I don't know, 10, 20 bucks, but, they're trying to do everything they can to cut corners, and this is one of them. But this didn't have to look this friggin' bad, is my main problem with it. I don't even have a problem with them cutting corners on the screen, as long as the screen is still good, and we could see it, and the play quality is good. But it didn't have to look so stupid, and they didn't have to do the extra programming to have the logo on the bottom of the screen or the credit. Totally unnecessary. So you guys may have seen my review or a bunch of people's reviews of the Numskull Quarter Arcades TMNT cabinet or various other Numskull cabinets, and if you look at the screen, you're like, wow, they use a great little 4x3 screen in their quarter arcade cabinets. Well, thanks to my buddy Ristalgia, who actually took his apart, he debunked this theory. This is, in fact, not a 4x3 screen, but a 16:9 screen that they actually put a bezel around. And honestly, I don't have any problem with that. They managed to pull it off. It doesn't look weird. It looks like it should. I have no issue with them not using a 4x3 screen here because they've actually made it look like they are using a 4x3 screen. So this really begs the question, Arcade1Up, are you dumb? Why didn't you do the same thing? Instead of jamming the gameplay screen up top, creating this extra level of difficulty by adding the Miss Pac-Man and the credit keeper down at the bottom, literally all you had to do was make sure that the screen was positioned in the center and the bezel would cover it up. Literally all you had to do. So I'm looking at this. This is currently available on Nebraska Furniture Mart for $149.99. If you're in Canada, you can go get them through Wayfair, and let me tell you, they are not cheap. $304.99.99 for the Arcade1Up Miss Pac-Man Galaga Class of 1981. This actually has less games than the last Class of 81 Countercade they released. It only has 3, Miss Pac-Man, Galaga, and Dig Dug. And if you haven't seen it yet, there's also a Pac-Man version with the exact same thing, as you can see here on the bottom. Also uses the 16:9 screen, 3 games included, Pac-Man, Super Pac-Man, and Pac-Mania. So anyways, guys, I don't know what to say. I'm baffled sometimes by Arcade1Up's decision making. Obviously, the company, it's pretty obvious that they're in a position right now where they're trying to cut costs, offer products at the lower possible prices, but sometimes doing so with creating more work for themselves and really missing the mark on what people wanted. In my opinion, like I said, just the same thing Quarter Arcades did. All they had to do, they could have saved a couple bucks, used the 16:9 screen, and just covered it up with the bezel. They didn't need to do the extra stuff. It would have looked so much better, and I probably wouldn't be here making this video shitting on them right now. Anyways, guys, that's all I wanted to talk about today. Arcade1Up, 16:9 screen in the Countercades. Dumb, and not so much dumb that they used a 16:9 screen, dumb at the presentation and how they delivered it. And of course, Wonderland Amusements, we've got so many updates, but we're really not any further ahead with knowing whether or not this is going to be a quality product. Time will still tell on this, but it's fun to follow this journey along, see this team of people that have come from New Wave Toys and also come from Arcade1Up on this journey to try to make a new product. I'm crossing my fingers, pulling for them. I hope they can get it done. I know there's a lot of people who think they can't. We'll, stay tuned and see what it is, but at the end of the day, no one's really going to be pass an opinion on this until you actually get to play it yourself. Anyways, guys, thank you so very much for watching. This is Michael B. the Game Genie. I'll talk to you next time.